Well, the last question I'll open up to both of you. Maybe Russ, you can answer first. But we obviously have a lot of enterprises that are thinking about modernization and whether they, and in most cases, frankly, iteratively modernizing versus rebuilding a large enterprise application. Wondered if you had any specific advice as they think about getting started.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that you can really do as you start to look at this. As I was starting to talk about earlier on, you've got your third-party libraries that in a lot of cases may be obsolete or may not necessarily be compatible with whatever platform that you're looking to move forward to, or maybe they just don't. they just need to be evaluated for various reasons. That's a place to begin. So you can really kind of take a look at your application in these different milestones, and you can start to take a look at these third-party libraries, update them, deal with that fallout, and any regression that may come as a consequence of that, and you can deal with that as a very clear milestone and in an iterative way. Another thing that you can do is dotnetcore brings to the table what's called a .NET standard. So it's basically a common set of libraries that are shared between .NET Framework and .NET Core. And it actually will allow you to build some of your shared component libraries, not necessarily the EXEs or the ASP.NET website itself, none of these entry applications, but the shared libraries where you build your common functions, your common business layers, that sort of stuff. You can actually start to migrate those into what's considered a .NET standard library. And then this way you can actually use those in an interoperable way between your .NET Framework and your .NET Core applications, and that can kind of give you a little bit of a stepping platform as well, so you can move again in a bit of an iterative way. So you can say, well, I've moved all of my entity libraries over, and I've moved my data access layer or my caching layer, and it can be used in both the .NET Core as well as the .NET Framework projects. And then at that point, you can actually start to focus on maybe your actual entry application, whether it be your WPF application, which is now supported in .NET Core 3.1, whether it be your ASP.NET application, whether it be an MVC full stack application, whatever it happens to be. But you can kind of take these things and break them into different pieces and just think about those different components. Other pieces is going to be a little bit more domain specific, but how do you have different layers broken out? Do you have a caching layer, and is this an opportunity to refactor that layer? And all of those different pieces and components are going to be a bit more, you said, industry or product specific, but you can definitely break your applications up into smaller components. And .NET and .NET Core really allow that to happen now, so that you can move these forward. Those are some of the things that really kind of just jump off the top of my head for me.
Thanks, Russ. Julian, I wonder if you had any thoughts as well.
Yeah, I mean, we've hit on some of these questions before, talking about frameworks, talking about the long cycle. One of the big pieces that leaps out to me is just how we think about maintainability. Actually, as we talk about some of those more legacy Java pieces, I was thinking back to how there was a state of mind where you'd put one of these in a server somewhere and you could kind of walk away and leave it alone. I mean, there's always some work to keep lights on, but on the other hand, you weren't going to have everything deprecate from under your feet within even 5, maybe 10 years. Now, these cycles, I don't know what started the trend, maybe Apple, maybe some of these leaders that have decided that they have to really keep change going fast, and deprecation's happening quicker. The front end feels it very painfully. It's just a fact of life. If you fall versions behind, you don't find your answers anymore. Your bugs might be yours, or they might be because you haven't updated. But over on in the Java stack, as I say, where you might have least expected to see it, suddenly the support cycles for versions have gone way down, and people are really feeling like they need to keep up with it. So there's a good and a bad there. I think it means that some of these giant modernizings of something that's really fallen out of use, out of understanding of the people working on it, those aren't probably going to happen quite the same. I think people are going to be forced to keep up with that as they get there. But that really promotes this notion in my mind of how are we thinking about the maintainability? When we pick technologies, how resourceable is it now? How resourceable is it in 5 years' time? If you had to suddenly start supporting your own framework because nobody was actively maintaining it, is that something you can realistically do in-house? Even if it's a very small framework, you'll probably find this is beyond what you could afford to support yourself. And if you find yourself as the major committer of a project like that, that's a scary place to wind up in. I like to think of it as sometimes you'll have an architect or an engineer who's really enjoying a particular piece of the industry technology trend of the day, but it's not them that's going to be running with this. It's going to be a whole team of programmers for a long time to come. Remember, you're at the start of something, not the end of it, and plan accordingly.
I appreciate you both taking the time to share your experience and learnings, particularly around modernization and .NET, dotnetcore, and Java. And thank you very much for the time this morning.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.